I've seen way too many people rush out and buy the cheapest mini PC they can find, only to end up with a box that chokes on a single YouTube tab, or throws a fit the moment they try to attach a second monitor. The regret is real. You're left with a cluttered desk, a noisy fan, and a feeling that you wasted the cash. So the question I keep hearing is, does stepping up to something like the GEEKOM IT15 AI actually feel like a smarter buy? Or is it just another expensive paperweight? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When you first hear mini PC, the mental image is usually a tiny box that you can slip behind a monitor, freeing up desk space. That's the promise, and it's a solid one for anyone whose work zone is already a cramped battlefield of cables and coffee mugs. The IT15 AI lives up to that promise with a chassis that barely takes up more than a couple of soda cans. If you've ever tried to fit a tower into a standing desk, you know how satisfying it is to slide this thing onto a shelf and still have room for a lamp. But the real test isn't just size, it's whether the little box can keep up with the tasks you actually throw at it. I've spent the past week using the IT15 AI as my primary work machine, swapping it in for a laptop that had started to feel heavy in my bag. The first thing I put it to work on was a 4K video edit for a client who needed a quick turnaround. With the Intel Ultra 9 285H at the heart and 32GB of DDR5, the timeline never stuttered, and rendering a 5-minute clip took just a few minutes, far faster than my old laptop's half-hour estimate. That's the kind of productivity boost you notice immediately, and it tells you the machine isn't just a pretty face. Gaming is a category that often scares people away from mini PCs. Though you can game on this claim can feel like a marketing stretch, but when I slipped in a few indie titles and even a modern esports title at 1080p, the experience was surprisingly smooth. The integrated graphics on the Ultra 9 aren't going to replace a dedicated RTX card, but for games that don't demand ultra-high settings, you get playable frame rates without the fans screaming. It's a nice bonus for a home office that wants a little break after a long spreadsheet session. One of the biggest concerns people have is connectivity. The IT15 AI comes with a decent spread of ports, USB-C, a couple of USB-A, HDMI 2.1, and a DisplayPort. I was able to hook up two 4K monitors and a 27-inch color-accurate panel for design work, all at the same time. Running 4 displays simultaneously is something you rarely see in a machine this size, and it turned my single monitor setup into a miniature command center without adding any extra hardware. That kind of flexibility is where a mini PC truly shines over a laptop, which often forces you to use a dock that can be pricey and bulky. Thermals are another hot topic literally. The Ultra 9 is a fairly power-hungry chip, and you'd expect a small case to get warm quickly. In practice, the IT15I's cooling solution held temperatures in the low 80s Celsius under sustained load, which is respectable for a box that size. The fan noise was audible when the system was under heavy video rendering, but it stayed in the background, more of a gentle hum than the whine you hear from many budget mini PCs. If you need absolute silence for a podcast or a quiet office, you might want to add a small acoustic panel nearby, but for most home or small office environments the noise level is acceptable. Upgradability is a point where mini PCs usually get a bad rap, and the IT15 AI does a decent job of addressing it. The side panel opens with a simple latch, revealing two SODIMM slots, one populated, one free, and a 2.5-inch bay that's already filled with a 2TB SSD. If you ever need more storage, you can swap that drive without tools, and adding an extra stick of RAM is just as easy. It's not as open as a tower, but compared to a laptop where you're often stuck with soldered memory, this is a refreshing level of flexibility. Now, let's talk about who should actually consider buying this. If you're a freelance video editor, a remote worker who needs multiple monitors, or a creative professional who values a clean desk and decent performance without hauling a tower, the IT15 AI fits like a glove. Its 32GB of RAM and fast SSD make multitasking feel smooth, And the Wi-Fi 6E module ensures you stay connected on high-speed internet without needing a separate dongle. For anyone who wants a dedicated machine for a home office or a compact setup in a small apartment, this is a solid contender. On the flip side, if you're a hardcore gamer who wants to push 1440p at ultra